Hello, everyone. I wanted to jump in and chat about what you need to know when it comes to timing for publicity because I have found myself a lot lately talking to clients who have book launches coming up or they have new programs launching. Maybe they've got a summit that they want to fill or a group program they want to fill in the coming months. So I want to talk a little bit about the timing of publicity because I found myself explaining it so much lately. And the common thread here is that everyone who's come to us has come to us too late. Now, some of them we've still been able to do things for, but it's been at a very accelerated, very compressed schedule, and they really haven't given themselves time to get all of the publicity they could get for their book or their program launch or whatever it is that they have coming up. So I want to share a little bit about what we typically see from a timing perspective. How long does it take from the time we pitch till the time we're landing podcasts and guest blogs or book reviews or television appearances or whatever it is? And then not just how long does it take before we are landing it, but how long does it take before that stuff is live and actually working for you? So I recently had a client who came to us and said, we've got a launch coming up in 4 weeks. What can you do to help us promote it? And I said, you know what, at this point, your best shot's Facebook ads. 4 weeks is not enough to really do anything in terms of publicity, because even if I send out the pitches today, I would say it normally takes 1 to 2 weeks at a minimum for people to reply to us. And you've probably heard me say before that we land over 60% of what we land for clients on the follow-up email. We don't send the follow-up email until 10 to 14 days after the initial pitch. So it can be anywhere, I'd say, from 1 to 4 weeks from when we send an initial pitch before we get a yes. Hey, then you still have to do whatever the thing is. So if it's a podcast interview, you've got to schedule the interview, actually do the interview. They've got to send it to their production folks to do the post-production, to actually have it go live. So from the time that we pitch a client for a podcast till the time it's live and people can actually hear it, I would say at a bare minimum is 6 weeks, but it can be 2 to 3 months depending on how booked out the podcast already is. Everyone runs their podcast a little bit different in terms of how they bank up their episodes and how they release them. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, you'd really be pushing your luck to get a podcast interview live within a month of the day that you pitch. I mean, that is almost unheard of. The only time you're going to see that happen is maybe with a newer podcast that doesn't have a bunch of episodes banked up. But if you're talking about a pretty well-established podcast and you want to be on because they've got this great established audience that you want to tap into, 4 weeks isn't going to do it. Like I said, you got to give yourself the time for them to reply to the pitch. Then you've got to schedule your time to actually record the interview. Then you've got to actually wait for them to do the post-production and post the interview. So that's a lengthy time period. I would say 6 weeks to 3 months is sort of the range we see that fall in depending on the podcast. For guest blogs, somewhat similar, okay? Even if they say yes within a few days or a week, and I would say depending on the outlet, some of them we've got existing relationships and we do get an answer in 2 or 3 days. Some of them it's weeks. You get that, then you've got to write the blog unless they required that you submit a full draft and get it into an editor. They have to edit it. They put it into their queue. Sometimes they're putting it into a content calendar with a specific theme. So I would say for a guest blog on what I would consider to be a major outlet, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum from the time you pitch till the time it goes live. And it could be more like a month or two. TV is probably the fastest. If I pitch today and it's something around a trending news story or around a holiday coming up, I might be able to get a client on in like 2 weeks. So TV can be a little bit faster. Speaking, on the other hand, is a lot longer. When we pitch for speaking, we're usually pitching 6 months to a year out. In fact, I was pitching a client recently, and we were pitching for conferences that are about 9 months out, and some of them had already booked up their speakers. So especially for bigger events, that's 6 to 12 months out that you're pitching that. Radio, you can get on a little faster, like TV, I would say, although radio is not a great fit for a lot of our clients, particularly if you are primarily an online business. You're not going to see a lot from radio. You would be better off being on a podcast. Radio is better for local brick and mortar kind of businesses. And then the other type of pitching we do is reaching out to writers and reporters who already write or cover things in your area and asking them to use you as a source to quote you or to feature you in some way. We could get a faster turnaround time with that sometimes. It's only a week or two. It depends. If it's something trending in the news or it's a holiday coming up, then we can usually get that in pretty fast. If it's more of an evergreen topic though, it could be months. So if you're planning something coming up and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do publicity because I want to fill my live event. I want to fill the audience, or I want to fill my group program that's starting, or I want publicity for my book that's getting ready to come out. I beg of you, give yourself at least 3 months. Bare minimum. In fact, we don't even take book clients under 3 months anymore because it's virtually impossible to get the publicity that they're looking for and get the impact they want that publicity to have in any time shorter than 3 months. And it's not just for books. I would say anything you're trying to do, 3 months out at a bare minimum. When you do it 3 to 6 months out, then you have the ability, let's say you book a podcast that's great for your book that's coming out. You have the flexibility to ask them to hold the interview and have it come out, say, the week of the launch, because you really want that big push the week of the launch, mostly for bestseller status. So we have the flexibility to ask them to hold it when we do it that far in advance. If I contact them now for a book that's coming out in 3 weeks, they're going to laugh at me because their schedule is already going to be set. They don't have time to do the interview, do the post-production, and get it published. And likely they've already got the interviews published and ready for the next few weeks to drop. So make sure you're planning in advance. If you want publicity to have that impact, to add people to your list, to get people to buy your book, to get them to join your program, to get them to come to your event, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish with publicity, you have got to give yourself the time to get enough out there for it to give you a return. We have people come to us and say, well, I've tried publicity before and it didn't work. And when we dig in on why it didn't work, usually it's the same kind of few things that were happening. Either they were pitching themselves and didn't really know what they were doing and their pitches just weren't great, or they were targeting the wrong outlets and the wrong audiences, or they didn't give themselves enough time. So I urge you, plan in advance. Publicity can do amazing things for you. It can fill your list. It can sell your book. It can fill up your event. It can fill up your group program. It's a wonderful tool, but you've got to give yourself the time to strategize, to come up with a real plan, to implement that plan. And then for the people you're depending on the other side, the editors, the producers, the writers, the podcast hosts, to do what they need to do, because they're not concerned that you're in a rush. It's not their problem. So give yourself that time to really plan it out so that you can have that big impact that you want to have. Hi, Abigail. If you guys have got questions around timing for publicity, let me know. I would be happy to answer those for you. And if you happen to watch this on the replay, you can still leave questions and I will come back to them. I just want to make sure you're starting to think about the time you need to give yourself. If publicity is to accomplish a time-specific goal. Now, if you're doing publicity to establish yourself as a thought leader, to build credibility, that should be an ongoing thing. You should be doing that all the time. It shouldn't be something you're doing for a month or 2 months, or you do this like 3-month splash and get a bunch of logos. That should be an ongoing activity. But if you have something date specific, 3 months bare minimum, and I'm not saying plan for 3 months, I'm saying plan for 6 months, but I'm telling you 3 months is the drop dead bare minimum. If you're already inside of that 3 months, you're probably too late for most of what you would want to do. Sorry. Let me know your questions. Let me know how I can help. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope whatever you have planning coming up, that you have got the time to really make an impact with it and to get out there and let people know about it. You know what I say? It doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if no one knows you do it. The same goes for your book. It doesn't matter how good that book is if nobody knows about it. That's why publicity is so important, but I want you to give the time to really create a strategy for it and make sure it works for you. All right, guys, have a great day.